choice. Content is available everywhere on so many platforms.
Nous sommes submergés de contenu sur diverses plateformes.
Being able to find this content is a challenge, not just here, but around the
Le
world.
défi est de trouver le contenu dans un environnement numérique en constante
Not,
évolution.
they're doing it through access
Les
versus
utilisateurs sont
ownership.
maintenant plus rapides que la
Users are now faster than TV. The age of abundance turned our world upside down.
Comment en sommes-nous arrivés là?
How did we get here? The post-TV era is made of disruption.
Et d'innovation.
Millennials are commanding change in the digital space.
Force le changement dans l'espace numérique.
What can analytics tell creators in the digital era?
Trouvez votre contenu
Find your content
ou laissez-le vous trouver.
or let it find you.
Le futur est maintenant.
Future is now. And now, how do we move from discoverability to discovered?
We're good. All right, we're good. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to the Discoverability Summit. I can't believe there's people on the couches. I thought for sure the couches would be like, oh no, I'm not sitting on the couches. So this couch is still open, guys. Bonjour à tous. Bienvenue au sommet de la découvrabilité. Je suis très contente de voir plusieurs visages familiers dans la salle. Mon nom est Anne-Marie Withenshaw, pour ceux qui ne me connaîtraient pas. I'm Anne-Marie Withenshaw. It was great to see so many familiar faces in the room this morning. We're in for an amazing 2 days, and I'm really excited to kick it off with you guys today. And I want to welcome people watching us on the live stream. There's the live stream. On the live stream via the discoverability.ca website. Hi guys. Bienvenue à tous ceux qui nous écoutent en web diffusion à partir du site découvrabilité.ca. For those of you in the room right here, I want to start off by mentioning that simultaneous interpretation is available throughout the event if needed. Headsets are available at the entrance of every room. Le service d'interprétation simultanée est offert tout au long de l'événement, which means I won't have to translate everything like I'm doing right now. Des écouteurs sont disponibles à l'entrée de chaque salle, donc vous allez pouvoir suivre n'importe quelle conférence, peu importe la langue. Now, some of you might have participated in the events in my hometown of Montreal or in Vancouver in December called En Route to the Discoverability Summit. Today and tomorrow is sort of going to be a continuation of the conversations that took place during the pre-events. But don't worry, that was not a prerequisite to attend the summit. On vit en ce moment dans une ère d'abondance où, en tant que consommateur télé, je suis certain que même vous, en étant à même l'industrie, vous vivez cette problématique-là ou cette situation-là. On est submergé de choix de contenu audiovisuel, que ce soit à la télé, sur Show Me, sur Crave TV, à l'ONF, à Tout.tv, sur Netflix, sur Illico, sur YouTube. On est épuisé même juste à nommer les plateformes. Donc imaginez le niveau de contenu. So viewers are no longer wondering, what's on tonight? But what should I watch? You see that all the time. Hey, you have a new series for me? What should I watch? What should I look for tonight? And so the traditional ways of discovering content aren't enough anymore. So what we want to spark over the next 2 days is we want to really create that spark to ignite new thinking, new ideas, new approaches to audiovisual content discovery. And all of you guys have brilliant ideas on how to do that. And so we're all very excited to hear what you have to say. So today and tomorrow, you'll get to hear a number of keynote speeches. You'll be invited to participate in 7 breakout sessions. You'll have a choice of 20 sessions in total. And you'll get to hear from the greatest minds and experts in a variety of fields to tackle this fundamental change we're going through of discoverability. Alors, le but, c'est vraiment d'explorer des nouvelles idées, de vous présenter avec des nouveaux outils, des nouveaux modèles d'affaires pour identifier des vraies solutions très concrètes pour mettre en œuvre la découvrabilité pour les téléspectateurs et aussi pour que les créateurs puissent faire voir leur œuvre. En plus des conférences principales et des séances, les co-organisateurs de l'événement, Jean-Pierre Blais, président et premier dirigeant du CRTC, et aussi Claude Jolicoeur, bonjour messieurs, en passant, commissaire du gouvernement à la cinématographie et président de l'ONF, vont prendre la parole dans quelques minutes pour vous souhaiter la bienvenue. After that, during lunch, you'll be invited to visit the hub in the lobby, which is a digital playground where you get to learn and test about lots of products and companies. We have Moog Audio that are there, Metaverse, Flixel, Google Cardboard, super cool, Marble Media, Xbox, and also visit the Hub Zone with Mark Saltzman, who's a tech expert. It's a must to go stop down and see her. On est aussi très content que l'honorable Mélanie Joly, ministre du Patrimoine canadien, se joigne à nous cet après-midi pour nous dire quelques mots. And throughout the event, you can take advantage of our chill-out corner in the Wildflower Room across from this room, right when you leave here, and there's food and drinks, and that's all where registration was happening this morning. Je vais aussi mentionner, parce que c'est sûr que là, vous allez être sur votre téléphone, c'est pour ça I don't have a strange growth in my pocket, it's actually just my phone, which is off. Good. We have some rechargeable stations. On a des stations recharge pour vos appareils un petit peu partout pour cet étage. And now, last but not least, don't forget the social event tonight. You'll get to continue your conversations of the day, meet new experts, and it'll be a really laid-back setting with entertainment and food and beverages. It's only a 5-10-minute walk from the hotel. And you should have also received your event guide with the agenda, the sessions, the keynotes. Everything is in that guide, and more copies are available near the registration tables. Now, just a few more announcements. We'll get all the housekeeping out of the way before we start, and then we'll really dig into the content. J'aimerais remercier nos commanditaires de cet événement, Canada Media Fund and Ion Canada, Téléfilm Canada, Rogers, Shaw, CBC Radio-Canada, and Chorus. They all contributed to make this event possible and make it unique. We thank them very, very much for it. And now, finally, I want to invite everyone, both in the room and watching the live stream, to use hashtag Discoverability during the summit to join the conversation on social media. And highlights of that conversation will also be displayed, as you can see from the events in Montreal and Vancouver. Le mot-clic à utiliser en français est hashtag Découvrabilité avec les accents sur les deux i. Now, if you haven't been on Wi-Fi yet, your Wi-Fi password is right behind your badge, so that's good and easy to know. And now, let's get this thing started. Without further ado, I'd like to invite the co-hosts of the Discoverability Summit, Jean-Pierre Blais, Chairman and CEO of the CRTC, and Claude Jolicoeur, Government Film Commissioner and Chairperson of the National Film Board of Canada, to join me on stage. Good morning.
Merci beaucoup Anne-Marie pour nous commencer avec plein d'énergie. Je ne suis pas certain, on était au Sommet de la jeunesse plus tôt la semaine dernière et puis on a échangé sur le fait que teenagers have a little less energy at 9:30 in the morning, so I'm hoping that this crowd will be more awake. So good morning everyone and welcome to the Discoverability Summit. Avant de commencer, je tiens à reconnaître que nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui sur le territoire traditionnel des Premières Nations. Je tiens donc à les remercier et à rendre hommage à leurs aînés. J'aimerais aussi saluer la présence des gens qui nous suivent en web diffusion, avancez-là, et puis je vous encourage d'ailleurs à utiliser le mot-clé « découvrabilité » sur les réseaux sociaux afin de prendre part aux discussions via Internet. I want to acknowledge those who are watching us via live stream, and I encourage you to use the Discoverability hashtag to join on the online discussion on social media. It certainly is an honor to welcome all of you here today. You know, it's been a long time and a short time coming. I think the people organizing it thought they didn't have much time, but you know, I announced that we would do this in March 2015, a little over a year ago. And it's been quite the long gestation period, so I hope it'll be a very exciting couple of days where we get to explore issues that are on the cutting edge of cultural creation and content. It's been certainly a pleasure to work with the National Film Board in planning this event. We have an exciting program for you that will hopefully inspire you and spark ideas to improve the discoverability of audiovisual content. Pourquoi la découvrabilité est-elle aussi importante? La réponse est à la fois simple et complexe. Nous vivons dans une ère d'abondance, le contenu est partout, on peut accéder à tout ce contenu n'importe où, sur toutes sortes de plateformes. Le téléspectateur est plus puissant que jamais. Aujourd'hui, il est un agrégateur actif et autonome à la recherche de contenus divertissants de partout dans le monde. Dans les 2 jours qui suivent, nous aurons la chance de discuter et de s'écouter. Nous continuerons les conversations que nous avons entamées lors des événements préliminaires en route vers le sommet de la découvrabilité. À Montréal, nous avons pu tâter le pouls du marché de langue française, while in Vancouver, we focused on the English language market. Nous voulons maintenant rassembler ces 2 marchés and see what lessons can be learned from each other. So you'll also have an opportunity to hear about strategies some of the panelists used to find success in the international market, but also learn from what did not work. As well, we are pleased to present a panel of international regulators and experts. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our guests from Mexico's Federal Telecommunications Institute and to those from the U.S. Federal Communication Commission, as well as the Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council. A moment ago, I said that audiences are no longer passive receivers of content. Millennials in particular are at the leading edge as active trendsetters, curators, and content creators. To find out more about their habits and behavior, we held last week, as I mentioned earlier, a youth edition of this summit. While this summit was playfully described as the adult summit. Interesting discussions took place once those folks woke up around 10 o'clock, with more than 100 very, very insightful and energetic folks from 15 to 17 years old that came in for the event. And they do have absolutely wonderful insight, and we have a lot to learn from them. In fact, I describe them as consultants for the day. They really stepped up. And you'll have a chance to hear what they said later this afternoon. But I'll give you a preview of what they said. The overwhelming majority do not watch content through a traditional television service provider. Their primary source of content is the internet. Even when they, first things they turn on is to find out what's on YouTube and what's going on there to their smartphones. With broadband and a slew of apps at their disposal, consumers and citizens have the power of now in their hands. The power to choose when the wind strikes to watch or listen to this or to that as they please. This is why discoverability is relevant, why it's worth getting all of you together here today and tomorrow, and why it's essential. Au cours des 2 prochains jours, je vous invite bien sûr à discuter d'idées et d'approches novatrices pour faire face aux défis que pose la découvrabilité. Mais plus encore, quelle incidence la découvrabilité a-t-elle sur vous? Que vous soyez membre de l'industrie, avide téléspectateur ou les deux. Comment mener le contenu aux téléspectateurs et à l'inverse, comment apporter le téléspectateur au contenu. Traditional promotion and marketing techniques are not entirely as effective as they once were. Don't abandon them, but how do we build on them? What then can be done to bring content and viewers back together again? So in search for answers, we have gathered experts from a wide variety of trade, ranging from television and #obvious to data architecture, as well as professionals from social media and video game worlds, to cite only a few. And it's great to see many familiar faces in this room, but it's also great to see very not familiar faces in this room, because I think there is some issues that we need to explore from a variety of providers. Believe me when I tell you, we have quite a rich array of expertise here today and tomorrow, and I want to remind everyone that this is anything but a regulatory proceeding. You may have noticed that it doesn't look like our hearing room in Gatineau. This is the CRTC using its convening power in collaboration with the NFB, Canada's public sector audiovisual research and development branch, to discuss the future surrounding discoverability as well as potential solutions. We have the honor of having someone special, as Amélie mentioned earlier, at the summit, in the person of Mélanie Joly, the Minister of Canadian Heritage. She will be with us later today to join the discoverability discussion. I can't believe I don't trip over the words discoverability and découvrabilité as I did a year ago, but anyhow, again, le problème quand on crée des néologismes, c'est de les apprendre et de les laisser sortir rapidement. I also want to acknowledge the presence of my CRTC Commissioner colleagues and some of our senior staff here. And finally, I want to officially welcome all of you to the summit. Discuss, watch, listen, share, take selfies, and don't forget to use the discoverability hashtag, le mot-clé découvrabilité. Et je vous souhaite à tous et à toutes un bon sommet. Thank you very much. Claude?
Yes, Jean-Pierre. Good morning. Welcome to this important conference, and thank you for joining us today for what I think is a unique opportunity for all of us to begin to shape the impact of our creative work in new ways. Il est rare qu'autant de talents issus de divers horizons et représentant un large éventail de disciplines d'industrie se rassemblent dans un but bien précis. Too rarely do filmmakers, television executives, data scientists, musicians, academics, writers, archivists, game developers, public servants, and entrepreneurs meet on common ground with a shared ambition, seeking approaches to ensuring that in an algorithmic world, audiences both here in Canada and globally can easily discover our content. Discoverability, though, has to lead to action. Being on a menu of million choices doesn't mean our efforts will succeed. Audiences can be so paralyzed by so many choices that they revert to the familiar. And I think we can all agree with conviction that Canadian creative productions are remarkable, and that our filmmakers and television creators are superbly talented, but that their work is not exactly familiar or familiar enough. Discoverability has long been a problem in this country. We just didn't have a name for it. We live in a time when every company, every organization, even every government is in the content business. And a time when much of the content people consume is created by people they know personally. With that kind of competition, what can we do to make our content more findable and appealing? Nous vivons à une époque où toutes les entreprises, toutes les organisations et même tous les gouvernements accordent une importance primordiale au contenu. Une époque où une grande partie du contenu consommé par les internautes est créé par des gens qu'ils connaissent personnellement. Devant ce genre de concurrence, que pouvons-nous faire pour rendre notre contenu plus attirant et plus facile à trouver? At the NFB, we create and distribute documentaries, animation, and interactive production. And it is the newest of these, the interactive work, that has made us more discoverable here and beyond Canada's border. We did it by making things that no one had made before, on a scale and with a creative confidence that drew significant international attention. This success brought key major organizations from the New York Times to MIT to Arte knocking on our door. They saw our work as valuable for their audiences and sought to collaborate with us. Another big part of this shift is how people perceived and connected with the NFB. Also came from our huge collection of films which we put online starting in 2009. Thousands of titles, some decades old, that were newly discoverable for free. NFB.ca, the diverse offering of films, reached new audiences who had never heard of us before. But as an industry, we should not just give audiences what they want, driven by consumer preference data. We also need to lead to take audiences where they have not been before. That will help distinguish Canadian content and help nurture what Minister Joly describes as an environment of innovation. En tant qu'industrie, nous ne devons pas nous limiter à nous laisser guider par les données sur les préférences des consommateurs pour leur offrir ce qu'ils veulent. Nous devons aussi prendre l'initiative, amener les auditoires là où ils n'ont encore jamais été. C'est ce qui contribuera à faire ressortir le contenu canadien et à favoriser le développement de l'écosystème d'innovation, comme l'appelle la ministre Joly. In her recently announced consultations on Canadian content in a digital world, the minister is seeking input on how to strengthen the creation, discovery, and export of Canadian content in a digital world. Ours is a sector where culture, technology, personal expression, citizenship, and economic growth are all vital elements of policy. In this context, we can see that discoverability has very significant implication for Canadians. So what's next? Well, perhaps the safest thing to do is not to play it safe. The new normal is that there is no normal. Do we act on these challenges as Canadians remain in a globalized pool of content, or will we be acted upon? Nos auditoires ne sont pas dans la salle aujourd'hui, mais ils doivent demeurer au centre de nos discussions. Rappelons-nous qu'il faut davantage que de la technologie et du contenu exceptionnel et pertinent pour les inspirer. Our audiences are not here in the room today with us, but they must remain at the center of our discussions. What drives them is not just technology and amazing and relevant content. So we have 2 days to think about it, to take initiative, to shape the future. So let's go to work. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Jolicoeur. Merci, Monsieur Blair. And now we're kicking off the day with our first keynote address. Dana Lee, Associate Professor and Manager of the Media Production Program at Ryerson University, is joining us for a 25-minute keynote featuring the pivotal moments in recent history that led us to this age of abundance. Mr. Lee started his broadcast career in 1979 at City TV, when it was still transmitting on Channel 79. In '84, he joined Much Music as its supervisor of operations, eventually specializing in live music event television. In '94, he began teaching at Ryerson University's RTA School of Media, and his current research focus at Ryerson is online collaborative learning and teaching and using new technologies to develop e-learning materials and blended learning courses. Join me in welcoming Mr. Dana Lee.
Hello. Is that working? Ah, there it goes. Okay, very good. Okay. Thank you and good morning. Je ne parle pas beaucoup français, so I'm going to be in English. So you're going, wow, okay. It's all coming back to me now. Okay, thank you very much and good morning. I'm here today to help you think about the bigger question of distribution and, of course, ultimately for you folks, discoverability. I'm probably going to leave you with more questions than answers, make you scratch your head a little bit. But here's a bit of background, especially for those of you who don't think about the history of this content all that much. Today, I'm going to concentrate, let's see if this works. Yeah. No. Oops. We're not moving ahead. Try the other clicker. I got nothing here. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is all about how technology sometimes fails you. I'm going to talk about wireless later on too, and how we got into wireless. And how wireless sometimes doesn't work. Should I sing a little song? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Is that me? No, that's not me. That's you. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm still not clicking. Maybe you can forward the slides for me. Yeah. Jared says yes. Okay. Okay. So today I'm not going to concentrate on the content. You have 2 days to concentrate on the content. I'm going to talk a little bit more about distribution methods. And because you're going to talk about content for days and days, I'm not going to start that with you. But to have meaningful conversations about content, we have to talk a little bit about how we get content, store it, retrieve it, move it from one place to another. Next slide, please. No. Next slide. And now, hello. And that is why my talk is about technologies. Old school. I can proceed ahead. That's too bad. I had some cool funny pictures to show you. All right. All right. Try one more? We go one more? Yes! Great. Yes, give it up for the slide. Okay. Information and stories have been important to us all since almost practically forever. I guess it all started when we were still grunting at each other, sketching cave drawings. So if there's a question of which came first, audio or pictures, I would actually maybe say the pictures came first, perhaps, in terms of communicating with one another. Eventually, we began forming words and sentences, however, haltingly, to get our point across to each other. Communication in this way was used to provide, of course, an oral history. It started with oral history to be passed down from one generation to the next. Next slide. Oh, it's working, great. One day, someone used their voice to sing instead of grunt at each other, and music was sort of born. So from the very beginning, we had to have this insatiable desire to talk to each other, to communicate with each other in whatever form, whatever medium we felt was appropriate at the moment, up to this point. Okay, now these poor suckers, they spent their entire lives transcribing documents before they faded away into oblivion. Today we have a more elegant name for that. We call it making a backup for the archives. So that's what they call it. This clearly was a pain in the butt, so we ended up, Gutenberg invented the printing press in the 15th century, relieving the tedium of painstakingly transcribing things over and over and over again. We still do that sometimes. This, of course, was followed by lithography, eventually the newfangled linotype machine. Can you imagine standing or sitting in front of that machine all day, in front of hot lead boiling away and typing things up? That was all fine and well for the printed word. We're going to move into modern media. But the only way to get that printed text to a faraway place was by placing it in some form of physical transportation and then carrying it someplace else. Not the most efficient means of communication. And now we enter into the modern age. The telegraph changed all that. And this is the first example of the digital encoding of information. We think this digital encoding thing is still relatively new. This is digital encoding. You took the letters of a message of what you want to send, encoded them into a special series of dots and dashes, and you could send that information. If you had the magical code system, you could decode those symbols back into text. We talk about codecs today, all these different kinds of codecs, encoders and decoders, and this certainly fits that definition. The telegraph means write at a distance. Imagine the miracle of being able to send information from one place to another almost instantaneously by wires. This is a very new idea. This beats the Pony Express by a fair bit. Okay, news services love this because the latest stories, such as they were in the day, became available all across the country more or less immediately. The early use of a codec is all fine and well, but you need specialized people to do the interpretation and move the messages around. It was not for our end consumer, unlike the media that we have today. But that was okay because the newspapers at the time converted all these special codes into text that the consumers, the masses could read and understand, okay? Now, it was time to move away from a digital medium. Never thought of the telegraph as a digital medium. Back into an analog one, and of course, Alexander Graham Bell was fooling around with and eventually invented the telephone. This was the first modern medium that would eventually provide consumers a two-way communication among themselves. That's a big change in terms of modern media, at least. Understand that print was a one-way medium, what we would call a one-to-many medium, with the possible exception of writing a letter to the editor that you may or may not get published in the next couple of weeks in the newspaper. So this is a two-way thing. And the telephone really, in a sense, is the first social media. The fact that we can communicate with each other and gossip and share stories with each other. So far I've concentrated very largely on sound. We're not going to leave out pictures. That came, of course, with the invention of motion pictures, film. And film, of course, started with still photography. Pardon me. And the ability to capture still images of a moment in time for all to see. Can you imagine what this was like? This must have been magical to those who weren't fully cognizant of how film worked. They didn't like, wait, that's the Eiffel Tower in the picture? And then a little bit later on, it's wait, that's me in front of the Eiffel Tower? Selfies. Motion pictures were simply an adaptation of the fact that we all have inside us what's called the persistence of vision. Could you click on that little video for me? It's going to flicker a little bit. There we go. There's persistence of vision is happening for you. If you flash an image on the screen and then take it away, the image will remain in our brains for up to a 1/10 of a second. It's kind of doing it there. You're kind of seeing a bit of an image going on. Now, early motion picture technology, for example, the zoetrope, and various versions of it, were exploitations of that fact. Zoetropes get pretty boring after a few seconds of watching that. It's not a very interesting plot. So eventually other people like Thomas Edison and Lumiere brothers in France and so many other people invented a system whereby you could see longer forms of picture content in the theater. And that was happening by the late 1800s. Could you click on that video for me, please? There's no sound with these. I just want to show you this very quick clip from the Great Train Robbery from Thomas Edison Studios in 1903. And you will notice that it has all the modern conventions of modern motion pictures. Fast-moving action, more than a little bit of gratuitous violence, and most importantly, believable special effects. There's no way, I mean, my God, look what he's doing to that man. Thank you. So you see, films really haven't changed all that much. Okay, back to radio for a moment. When the silent films of Lumiere and Edison were being shown in theaters, this was a new venture on the horizon called radio. Radio was one of the first cumulative, maybe not necessarily collaborative inventions of the early 20th century. From Maxwell, I'm going to put a bunch of cool pictures up here, from Maxwell to Hertz and Tesla to Fessenden, there's Tesla, to Fessenden and Marconi and Armstrong and Fleming and DeForest. While these folks didn't always agree with one another, and certainly they did not agree, they didn't even agree who owned what patents from time to time, eventually radio did all come together, and of course we know today it flourished. So now we've got films in theaters, and radio is something that people are now receiving in their homes. Wouldn't it be great if we could get pictures into the homes as well? It'd be great. We know what that is. It's called television. Literally, television. Long distance imagery. So this is a great idea. This idea was developed by lots of people all over the world. Those of you who are television historians probably know a lot about it. Here's a couple of players, John Logie Baird in the United Kingdom, and of course Vladimir Zworykin and Philo T. Farnsworth, all happy, smiley people in America. David Sarnoff, one of the great business people in America to do with television, realized the commercial importance, and as president of RCA, demonstrated the practicality of television at the New York World's Fair in 1939. RCA owned NBC, arguably the first television network in the United States, albeit a small one at the time. This all came to an abrupt halt at one of the beginnings of the Second World War. I suppose the good news is that all the research and development that had gone into television at this point was used to help the war effort and to do developments such as radio communication and radar. I'm just going to grab a glass of water here. Okay. So they're taking up the Second World War. After the war, everything went a bit nuts. The sale of televisions in the United States and Canada increased at a rapid rate, as you can see by this chart. We've seen charts like this all the time. By 1965, over 90% of households had at least one television set. That's a pretty big take-up. Okay, this chart happens to be for the United States. The stats are easier to get. Our chart in Canada was pretty much exactly the same, except because we have 1/10 of the population, it's 1/10 the number of television sets. So, up until 1952, speaking of all of that, the sale of television sets in the United States and Canada increased at a rapid rate. Oops, sorry. Up until 1952, I should say, there were no television stations in our country, even though some TV sets were clearly being sold. So all those sets were purchased predominantly by folks living near the Canada-US border, and their antennas, there's the antennas, were aimed at American transmitters. CBC, as most of you know, signed on in 1952, followed closely behind by CTV, independent stations, and the eventual expansion of networks, both in the United States and in Canada. Okay, that was real fast. Now, history buffs in the crowd will realize I've glossed over a whole bunch of stuff, and I get that. This is not supposed to be a detailed history lesson. It's supposed to be an up talk to get you going for 2 days of discoverability. What's interesting, though, is the nature of that chart. It's similar to the adoption curve of almost all of our media technologies. Down at the bottom, you've got the early adopters, followed by a large surge up in the middle, and a flattening out as most of everybody else picks up on the concept and basically adopt that new technology. So we, in Canada, were fairly quickly adding television transmitters from sea to shining sea. To give you an idea of the effort involved of the coverage of Canada, by 1979 we had 980 new transmitters in operation. This is television. While the US, with their 10 times the population, had only a little bit more, at 1,045. Today, in this country, we have over, I think really it's now over 5,000 transmitters of one sort or another. That's a lot of transmitters. We are in a big country. Despite this Herculean effort, a lot of people have been and are still, and certainly historically, were left out of the loop. Folks in northern Canada, for example, had little of any television. Radio, a little cheaper to set up, transmit, and receive, also was more limited, less choice available. It's a big place. Folks, this is a tough slog that we have in this country, and we needed better ways of getting the word out. Cable TV helped pave that way. Starting around 1952, the invention of cable was to get over-the-air signals to more viewers. A lot of us lived in areas of the country where the reception wasn't too great, either because we lived in a valley, perhaps, or simply just being a long distance away from the nearest stations. Our early cable pioneers set up antennas high up on high hills, as you can see in this old picture, picked up the distant stations, and for a small monthly fee to cover the cost of the distribution system, delivered those signals to your home. It started off really small. By 1964, only 4% of Canadian households had cable TV. You almost can't imagine that day. Those of you of a certain age, like me, will remember this changing by the middle 1970s. Cable started to take off in urban areas, not just rural open spaces, often because of the proliferation, say that word 5 times, of high-rise buildings, which meant your rooftop antenna reception kind of sucked, and the rabbit ears, if you were still using them on your TV set, were even worse. Okay, I remember as a young student at Ryerson, and my friends telling me, come over to my parents' place, we have cable TV. God, there's some laughter. Okay, some of you remember that. We have cable. By 1975, cable TV was in 60% of Canadian households. That's a big increase from 4%. Meanwhile, we're messing around with these satellite things. If you hurl a satellite into space at a distance of 36,000 kilometers, plus or minus, and at a velocity of 11,000 kilometers per hour, and positioned at the equator, something really neat happens. As the Earth rotates, the satellite appears to us to be not moving. It's just hanging up there in space. There are hundreds of these things. It's called a geosynchronous satellite, and there are, boom, hundreds of those up there now, circling the globe. We send the signal to the satellite, it turns it around and beams it back down, and we can cover an entire country with one beam if necessary. It's a wonderful thing. Some of you are familiar with this, some of you are not, so I'm bringing you all up to speed. That beam comes down. Obviously, we transmit signals from TV station to TV station for our networks, also all the cable companies to get all that wonderful content into our homes. And of course, now we have direct broadcast satellites, so we have direct-to-home satellite TV. Running parallel with all this, of course, just to complete it, has been the deployment of television distribution systems, employing high-speed infrastructure from the telephone companies. And of course, just to be fair, cable now offers telephone service as well. Everything is starting to converge for the first time. This has been happening for a while, but this was the first time. And things are happening more, things are more complicated for the end consumer. They have this thing called choice. Finally, the internet became a public enterprise in the early 1990s. Had to find that picture. You see, it says DeviantArt.net as far as I can tell. I try and give credit where credit is due on the pictures. I went to try and find out where the source for this was, and I ended up in one of those, my browser blocked the site because it was spammy and weird. And I thought, how typical. I'm trying to find a cute picture of the internet, and it says, don't go there. That's a virus. Anyway, side note. The internet's really only about 20 years ago. I know, some of us may remember a time before the internet. Probably none of us remember a time before radio, or a time before the telephone, or even a time before early television. So that's how new this internet thingy is. Keep that in mind in your conversations over the next couple of days. This is still really, really new. And we're going to continue to struggle with it for a while yet. The way history goes is often an exercise in hand-wringing. It goes something like this. First off, we had newspapers. Then radio was invented and developed. It became widespread, and newspaper publishers proclaimed that it'll be the end of print media. Radio is immediate, newspapers not so much. It's going to destroy us. The music industry, meanwhile, with this invention of radio, is apoplectic about the invention of it, as they don't see how it can possibly be used to increase sales of phonograph recordings. I mean, they're giving away the music for free. How could we possibly use radio to increase our sales? This will be the end of the music industry, they said. Motion pictures are safe for a moment, because nobody's figured out how to put moving pictures into the home. Now that changes. They developed television, and the movie people are now all in a huff, saying it's going to destroy the theater business. To their credit, they continue to develop technology over the years to combat this, things like color movies, special effects that can't be done on TV, higher resolution film, better projectors, better quality sound, all that good stuff. The TV folks, of course, invent all that as well, and round we go. Meanwhile, off to the side, cable TV takes off, and our audiences, really for the first time back then, start to become fragmented. Choice, more choice. Choice for the consumer will be the end of all of us. Our audiences are shrinking, more due. Wait a second. We're the ones who made all the choice. Okay. The VCR is invented. Remember VCRs? And now the movie and television production companies are upset. They're stealing our stuff. You're allowing people to make free copies of our content to watch when they want to watch it, where they want to watch it, instead of us telling them what to watch and when to watch. We now flip that on its head. Of course we know consumers want that now. This was a new idea back then, okay? This will destroy the movie and TV industries, they said. How can we possibly make money? This is piracy. And then they took a step back and said, hang on a second. You remember the days of being able to rent movies, and on DVD and on VHS tapes. They made billions of these things. So the people had to rethink the content and rethink the technology to, get it out to people. All right, how do we get that content? How do people find out? Meanwhile, somebody said, I got another idea. Let's start making even more content. We'll make more television cable channels. Heck, we can even get the consumer to pay for these channels. What do we call them? I know, pay TV. So that's what we did. And that's how we'll get our lost revenues back, and that's how we'll get our viewers back. So with the best of intentions, we start to scramble. All of us do this. Mind you, this scrambling takes a few decades. It doesn't happen overnight, okay? We've been doing this for a long time. But there's a little bit of a tension in the air that's been building up over the decades. Can you feel it? Oh yes, the internet, remember that? What a neat toy the internet is, we said, right? This whole internet thing will never be in competition for our listeners and viewers. It's just for print. Insert pity here for the print people, of course. And because, sure, people are putting up some low quality audio and some little tiny low resolution videos, but this whole internet thing will really never take off because the bandwidth will never be big enough for audio and video, right? How's that working out? There's a big lesson in all of this history as I get new into all of this. Let me pose something to you. Okay, there's a lot of you in the room here, and you come from all over the place. Especially I heard that in the opening comments this morning. Many of you came here by traveling on a commercial airline. You well know the check-in procedures you have to go through. Online bookings, printing of your boarding pass, whether you print it at home or in your office or at the airport. Scanning your passport, scanning your boarding pass several times. If some of you traveled internationally, you did that a lot of times to get here. Walk through a security checkpoint, eventually locked to a secure area until the aircraft boards and so on. Could the Wright brothers possibly have anticipated all that when they figured out how to fly a machine in the air? And what they saw from the air on those first flights, they looked down and went, wow, man, I can see the ground. Did they ever imagine a day when everybody would be able to do that so quickly? We call it Google Earth. The early inventors of photography, they were fooling around with black boxes, photosensitive materials, stinky chemicals. Did they ever imagine the emergence of the digital camera? Or the selfie? Or worst of all, the selfie stick? When Alexander Graham Bell spilled acid on himself and called out to Watson, was he able to imagine that every one of us in this room probably was going to have one of those in our pockets? Did he consider voicemail as an option? Can you imagine him calling out to Watson and getting something like this? Click. Seriously? There it is. Hey, I'm not in the next room right now. Please leave your message or I'll call you back as soon as I can. Thanks and have a great day. I don't know. Did the inventors of radio ever consider that one day everyone would own several radio transmitters? Everything from cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, two-way radios, cordless phones. That's that you even have a landline to plug your cordless phone into. This clicker thing, which works with, this wireless microphone I have on. We all own many transmitters. Fessenden didn't own one, right? It's changing. I wonder what Fessenden would have thought of internet radio and podcasts. My point in all of this is that these original inventions, there we go. My point in all of this is that these original inventions were never intended to serve the purposes that they do today. None of the inventions as invented do the same thing today. I suppose in a sense, none of the content that we invented is going to be doing what it did in the past. We have to think about what content is going to do to our viewers, or our content viewers. Okay, these things all mutate over time, and will continue to do so. I keep hitting the wrong button, that's partly my problem. My bad. So, it's not about the medium, it's the message. And by the message, I don't actually mean the content. I was at NAB a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps some of you were there too. As I walked around past almost 1,800 exhibitor booths, I noticed something. There are lots of systems and devices out there for creating, distributing, storing, and monetizing your content. But there is proportionately very little about how to hold up your audience or how to hold your audience, or even how to get your audience in the first place. The tools that are out there seem to be right now are often designed to find a particular group of designated listeners or viewers, and then see if anybody bites, if anybody takes up your content. That's an old push it out to them model. We all know about push and pull content. Perhaps, and I'm just speculating here, what we need is a different model that allows the end user, the consumer, to actually find the stuff they're interested in, rather than just stumble across it by happenstance, or because they saw someone's posting on Facebook about it, that content that might interest them. Yes, we realize this, but it's not organized this. But that's the way it seems to be working right now, at least the way it works for me as a consumer of content. The notes for this symposium, the big broad notes in the handouts that you all have, talk about creating a one-to-one connection with the viewer and deepening that relationship. I wholeheartedly agree. I said a couple of minutes ago that it's about the message, but I said that message wasn't content. I would suggest that over the next couple of days, you think about customer service. Maybe that's part of the message. In the end, this is about people, not technology. In fact, it's not even necessarily about the content. It is, as we're doing for the next few days, about the discoverability of that content. I've concentrated on technology a lot in this talk, and I think you can see this technology is terribly mutable. It's beautiful and mutable. So is content. Content is absolutely mutable. It can be repurposed for distribution in so many different ways, and pretty much everybody in the room probably does that one way or another. Making more of it is not getting it discovered any better. There's just more to choose from. To me, every single one of your audience members is a human being, just like you and I. Bad grammar up there, just like you and me. Okay, maybe that is where we should be concentrating our efforts from now on. I don't know. But what I've tried to give you is a little bit of historical background to think about how everything that we create in the moment, we think we've got this. I got this. I got motion pictures figured out. I got TV figured out. I got radio figured out. Then we do at the moment. But maybe we have to think about, can we predict in the future how we figure out how we get our folks to discover our content better? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your mission over the next couple of days. Thank you very much for your time.